Let us at this point consider CSS sizing and units. Units in CSS provide us the yardstick to measure the size of our elements, so it helps us define how large or small elements we are styling should appear in our web page. There are two basic types of units in CSS. We have absolute units and relative units. Absolute units basically remain the same no matter the type of device you are working with. And here, examples of absolute units we have in CSS include inch, centimeters, millimeters, and pixels. Pixel is an absolute unit you are very likely to be working with more of the times, and this is how pixels look like. You can see that on your mobile screen or on any digital screen. When you zoom into the screen, you can see that it contains a lot of dots that produce light independently. One of these dots is what we call a pixel, and all these dots come together to make up your screen. So when we say a button has a size of 1 pixel, it means that the size of that button spans just one of these dots. In a situation where the device is very, very wide or large, a lot of dots can come together to form 1 pixel. But on mobile devices, 1 pixel is equal to 1 dot. The next type of unit that we'll look at is the relative unit, which could be viewport height, viewport width, REM, EM, and the percentage. So with respect to relative units, they can change as and when necessary. So sometimes they may change when you resize your browser. And so a text may be small on a mobile device, but would look larger when you switch to a desktop computer. And this means that a relative unit is under work. But when it comes to absolute, if you set up your text to be about 50 centimeters, whether the text is being viewed on a phone or on a computer, it will still remain at the unit you have set and it wouldn't change at all. But that isn't so in relative units. And so, more of the times, we advocate that you use relative units instead of absolute ones. We are now going to look at these units in our VS Code and play with some of them. Now that we have opened our VS Code, let us create a new folder, a new file called units.html, and then we save that. We begin with our element, just as we have been doing. Let's close the file tree with Ctrl B, and then CSS Units, and then we can begin. So let's begin with a div, and then that is any container at all. So container 1, and then within this we may have about 3 paragraphs. So let us use our lorem. So P, about 3 of them, greater than lorem. Oh, so bad. Multiplying 3 greater than lorem 20. Press our tab key. We have about 3. Let us dispose this and then go over again. So this is our container 1 that contains 3 different elements. So now the first thing is an absolute unit. So let us come here and then set a style here, and then P with the size of about, so font size, we can give it, so we have a lot of font size units. So let's go with large and see. So that is quite large. We can also go with larger. Good, that is larger than the large. So any font unit name or font size name you want, you can go for it. But I want us to concentrate on our absolute units. So let's assume we want about 70 millimeters. How is that going to look? So these millimeters, centimeters, and inches are usually used when you are working with print documents. You see, there are some times that you may have to print your page, or if it's an invoice you are designing, you would have to print it out, and you may stick to a unit like this as and when necessary. So we have the unit in millimeters. It could also be in centimeters, and that is going to be so big that you may have to zoom out. So control and minus to see. No, that is being applied to Visual Studio rather. No. So we rather want that on the page to see. It's still too big. 70 millimeters, 70 centimeters is too big. So we can change that into about, let's say 12. 12 is not even that small. So let's say, yeah, 1 centimeter isn't bad. So this is how 1 centimeter looks. Now, let's concentrate on pixel rather. So let's go for about 20 pixels. So this is the size of the paragraph. You can see that whether we reduce the screen size or increase it, our size does not change. It just fills up any empty space, but the size itself doesn't change. So that is what we mean by an absolute unit. Absolute units do not change in size. Pixels and these absolute units are not only for letters, or they are not only for paragraphs, or they are not only for typography, but we can also style our border. So let's go for border, 1 pixel of a border. So that's the size of the border that we want. And then it should be a solid border. A border could be dashed and the rest. So this is a solid border. And then we give it a color of, let's say, green. So we can see that we have applied a border, which is 1 pixel. Let's change it to 2. We can see the border's thickness has increased. Let's go for even something more. Let's go for something like 7. You can see that our border is too large. We can even change it into centimeters, and that is going to look awkward, but that is fine. Let's go for 1 centimeter. So this is how we can style using absolute units. Now, our div, we can also style our divs with our pixels. So let us now come this way. Let us define the width of our div element as about 30 pixels. So it means that this is the size of our div. Let us color it. Let's give it a background color of, let's say, FE. That is not showing because it's somehow white. Let's give it yellow green. So this is the size of our container. It's not looking nice at all. Let's give it a width of about, no, 1000 pixels will be too big. So let's give it about 100 pixels. That's also not great. 500. So this is about 500 pixels. Take note that as we resize our browser, it doesn't change. The size doesn't change because it is an absolute unit. But if it were a relative unit, the size was going to change accordingly. So let me comment this out. You already know what a comment is. So we pressed control and then the / to comment out the code. We use comments when we want to write something that our browser should not use or incorporate into our code, but rather we can use that to leave notes within the code. So at this point, this is what the code is doing. At that point, this is what the code is doing. And sometimes if you want to write something you would do later, you can also use comments, and comments are given by / and then star, and then after writing your comments you put in the star and then the / and that would have given you your comment. So we continue with our units. Now let us try with the relative units. The first one we are going to try with will be the percentage. So 100%. When we assign a percentage value to an element, it usually refers to the parent of that element. So in this element, you can see that the direct parent of the div element is the body. So let's color the body as, let's give the body a color of red. So background color red. So you can see that this is a background color of red, and we are giving this div 100% of the width of the body. You can see it's spanning almost about 99%. There is a setting that the browser is displaying, and we can choose to override that setting. Let's see if we can override it so that this becomes very clear. So we use the CSS reset. So we use the star tag to select all the elements, and then margin. So we go for padding first, padding 0, margin 0, and then box sizing. We go for border box. You would get to understand this very soon. So actually, the browser itself by default applies some level of margin and padding to the page. So no matter the element you are working with, there's some level of margin and padding. And right now we have collapsed all of them. That is why you can see that now our div is taking 100%, full 100% of the body elements. So when you describe the percentage, it refers to the parent of the element, and we can see that with div, the direct parent of the div is the body, so it is spanning 100% of the body. We can also do same with the height. So let's go for height 100% and then see what is going to happen. So you see that with height, it is not working because height usually grows to fit the content, but there is a way we can use another CSS unit to fit the height, but we'll come there. So that is on the percentage as a relative unit. Let us look at another relative unit, which is the EM and the REM. Let us consider REM first. So the REM stands for the root EM, and that means that all the values you have set refers to the size of the root element of your HTML. And we know that the HTML root element is this very tag. So let's give this paragraph, we haven't styled the paragraph, so let's give this paragraph a font size of about 2 rem. and then close it, we can see that it has increased. So what is setting the size of this HTML element? Let us go and inspect it and come. So to see your settings or what controls the size of your HTML root element, you come this way. So you click the three dots. Let me enlarging this so that you see it well. And then you go to settings. And in the settings, you look for appearance. And then scroll down. You can see font size here. This is what sets the size of your HTML root element. So let us now change this into very small and see. So as soon as we change it, we can see that it has some level of impact. So let us change this. You can see that this text has changed drastically. And looking at the container has also changed drastically. This text, the font size, if you keep it at recommended, it is about 16 pixels. And so any unit or any element you refer to as a multiplication of the REM would multiply itself by the size of the REM. So the medium like this, let us set it to medium now. So when we come this way, if the root element is 16 pixels, then it means that this font size of 2 REM is actually 32 pixels because that is twice the root element. Let us inspect it and see if that is true. So we inspect the paragraph and then let's enlarging this and then look for styles. Yeah, so the style is open. Let's see if we get the size itself. So we just want one. Okay, it's still in REM units. It's still in REM units, but let us set it to 32 pixels and see if there's going to be a difference. So let us change this one into 32 pixels and see if there's going to be a difference. So we set it to 32 and then change it into, so please watch closely, and then to REM. You see that there is no change at all. Even though we have saved our work, there's no change because this root element is 16 pixels and twice of that is 32 pixels. So 32 and 2 REM are the same. It is generally not a good practice to set the size in the HTML tag. So HTML like this. And then if you set the font size, let's set this font size as let's say 20 pixel, or let's make it larger so that let's make it about, no, let's rather go for something small. So HTML, the size is about 5 pixel. You can see that it has been able to override all the settings we have made. Now let's see if we change our size to very large. Let's see what is going to happen. You can see that nothing has changed. This is because this size has been able to override the appearance or the font size that we have set for the browser. And this isn't so cool, especially for people who have eye problems and would want the page to increase in size. As soon as you set a static size for the HTML element, you take away this right from the users and that isn't a great thing. So please do not set the font size in the HTML element. So we take this off, but we can also see that this to rem is about 10 pixels. So you can see that this is bigger than the container that we have written here, because that is twice the root element, which is the HTML element in this case. One other relative unit we would have to consider is the EM. And the EM basically refers to the font size of the element you are working with. So let us give an example here.